The moment Rebecca Sutherland felt her knees buckle beneath her on that narrow mountain trail in the Colorado Rockies, she knew she had made a terrible mistake thinking she could reach her sister's homestead alone. The summer sun of 1878 beat down mercilessly as her vision blurred and the world tilted sideways, her body crumpling onto the rocky path like a discarded rag doll. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the endless blue sky and the towering pines swaying above, their whispers the final sound in her ears before silence took over completely. Ryder Owens had been tracking an elk through the high country for the better part of the morning when he noticed the vultures circling ahead. His jaw tightened as he urged his horse forward, his weathered hands gripping the reins with the practiced ease of a man who had spent the last decade living in these mountains. At 30 years old, Ryder stood well over 6 feet tall, his broad shoulders and muscular frame built from years of hard living in the wilderness. His dark brown hair hung past his collar, tied back with a leather cord, and his piercing green eyes missed nothing in these woods he called home. The thick beard covering his angular jaw did little to hide the concern-etching lines across his sun-bronzed face as he approached the site where the scavenger birds gathered. When he rounded the bend in the trail and spotted the crumpled form of a woman lying motionless on the rocky ground, his heart slammed against his ribs. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots hitting the earth with a solid thud as he rushed to her side. She was young, probably mid-20s, with auburn hair that had escaped its pins and fanned across the dusty trail like spilled wine. Her traveling dress, once a respectable dark blue, was torn and dusty from what must have been days of hard travel. Most concerning was her pale face, skin hot to the touch when he pressed his calloused fingers against her forehead. Fever, dehydration, possibly worse. Ryder acted on instinct honed by years of surviving alone in unforgiving terrain. He retrieved his canteen and carefully tilted her head, letting small drops of water touch her cracked lips. She did not respond, lost somewhere in the depths of unconsciousness. He checked for broken bones with careful, practiced movements, finding none but noting the way her breathing came shallow and quick. Whatever had brought her to this remote mountain trail, she would not survive another hour in the blazing sun. The nearest settlement was 5 miles down the mountain, a grueling trek even for a healthy man on horseback. But the trail ahead was too narrow and treacherous for his horse to navigate while carrying double, especially with one rider unable to hold on. That left only one option. Ryder slid his arms beneath her slight frame and lifted her with ease, her weight barely noticeable to a man accustomed to hauling 100-pound game through rough country. He positioned her carefully against his chest, her head lolling against his shoulder, and took a moment to secure his rifle across his back before he started walking. His horse, a steady bay gelding named Thunder, followed behind without needing to be led. The first mile tested his resolve. Despite his considerable strength, carrying another human being down a steep mountain trail required constant adjustment and balance. Sweat soaked through his shirt as the afternoon sun climbed higher, but Ryder kept his pace steady and sure. The woman in his arms remained unconscious, her breathing worrying him more with each passing minute. He talked to her as he walked, his deep voice rumbling in his chest. "You are going to be all right, miss. Just hold on for me. We will get you down to Doc Miller in Cedar Springs. He will fix you right up." No response came, but he had not expected one. He continued talking anyway, finding comfort in the sound of his own voice breaking the oppressive silence. "Whoever told you it was a good idea to travel these trails alone in summer should be horse-whipped. These mountains do not forgive mistakes, especially not from city folk who do not know better. The second mile brought new challenges. The trail narrowed where it wound along a cliff face, forcing Ryder to press his back against the rock wall and slide carefully along the ledge. One wrong step would send them both plummeting hundreds of feet to the canyon floor below. His massive arms held the woman secure against him, protecting her from the rough stone as he navigated the dangerous passage. Thunder balked at following, but Ryder's calm commands eventually coaxed the horse across. "That is it, boy. Nice and steady. We are not losing either of these passengers today." By the third mile, Ryder's shoulders burned with the strain, his muscular legs driving forward through sheer determination. He had carried plenty of heavy loads in his years as a mountain man and fur trapper, but a human life felt different somehow, more precious than any elk or bear he had hauled. The woman stirred occasionally, small whimpers escaping her lips that told him she fought some private battle in her fevered dreams. He held her closer, his protective instincts rising fierce and unbidden. "Easy now. I have got you. You are safe." The fourth mile tested his endurance in ways he had not anticipated. His legs trembled with exhaustion and his breathing came heavy and labored. Still, he refused to stop, refused to rest, driven by an urgency he could not quite name. This woman needed help immediately, and he would get her to safety or die trying. The sun began its slow descent toward the western horizon, offering slight relief from the oppressive heat, but also warning him that darkness would come within a few hours. "Come on, Ryder," he muttered to himself, his voice strained. "You have hauled bigger loads than this. She cannot weigh more than a yearling deer. Move those feet." During the fifth and final mile, as Cedar Springs came into view in the valley below, the woman in his arms opened her eyes for the first time. Ryder felt her sudden tension, the way her body went rigid against him. "Easy, miss. You are safe. I found you collapsed on the mountain trail. I am taking you to the doctor." Her eyes, he noticed now in the golden afternoon light, were a striking shade of blue-gray, like storm clouds over the mountains. They struggled to focus on his face, confusion and fear warring in their depths. "Do not try to talk," he continued, his voice gentle despite his exhaustion. "Save your strength. We are almost there." She tried to speak anyway, her lips forming words that came out as barely audible whispers. "My sister. I need to find my sister." "We will worry about your sister after the doctor looks at you. Right now, you need water and rest and probably medicine." Her eyes drifted closed again, but this time Ryder felt certain she had simply surrendered to exhaustion rather than unconsciousness. He pushed forward with renewed determination, his powerful legs eating up the remaining distance to Cedar Springs, despite the screaming protest of his muscles. The small mountain settlement consisted of perhaps 20 buildings clustered along a creek, built to serve the miners and trappers who worked the surrounding territories. Ryder headed straight for the doctor's office, a small cabin near the center of town marked by a hand-painted sign. His arrival drew attention from the few folks on the street, their curious stares following him as he mounted the steps and kicked at the door with his boot. "Doc Miller, I need help here." The door swung open to reveal a gray-haired man in his 50s, spectacles perched on his nose and medical bag already in hand. Doc Miller took one look at Ryder's burden and stepped aside immediately. "Bring her in. Put her on the table." Ryder carried the woman inside and laid her carefully on the examination table, his arms feeling strangely empty once he released her. He stepped back to give the doctor room to work, his chest heaving as he finally allowed himself to acknowledge his exhaustion. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but satisfaction warmed him from within. 5 miles. He had carried her 5 miles down the mountain, and she still breathed. Doc Miller worked with efficient, practiced movements, checking her pulse and breathing, examining her pupils and feeling for fever. She is severely dehydrated and has heat exhaustion. Might be the start of heat stroke. Where did you find her? Up on the high trail about 5 miles north. Looked like she had been there a while. Lucky you came along when you did. Another hour and we would be having a different conversation entirely. The doctor pulled out supplies, already preparing to start treatment. She is going to need fluids and rest for a few days. I will keep her here where I can monitor her. Ryder nodded, but found himself reluctant to leave. Something about this woman pulled at him, made him want to stay and make sure she truly would recover. She said something about looking for her sister. Well, she will not be looking for anyone until she is back on her feet. Doc Miller glanced at Ryder with a knowing expression. You look about done in yourself, Ryder. When was the last time you came down from that mountain? Been a few weeks, I suppose. Go get yourself a meal and some rest. She will still be here in the morning. But Ryder found his feet unwilling to move toward the door. His green eyes remained fixed on the woman's pale face, watching the shallow rise and fall of her chest. I will just stay a while, make sure she is settled. The doctor's lips twitched in what might have been a smile, but he said nothing, simply continuing his work. He managed to rouse the woman enough to get small sips of water into her, and gradually some color began to return to her cheeks. After nearly an hour, Doc Miller straightened and wiped his hands on a cloth. She is stable now. Fever is already starting to come down. She is a fighter, this one. With proper care, she should make a full recovery. Relief flooded through Ryder with unexpected intensity. That is good. That is real good. You did a fine thing today, Ryder. Not many men could have carried her that distance in this heat. Ryder shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Could not very well leave her up there to die. No, I suppose you could not. Doc Miller studied him with an expression Ryder could not quite read. You planning to hover here all night? Just want to make sure she is all right. She will be fine. But if you insist on staying, make yourself useful and fetch some more water from the pump outside. She is going to need plenty of fluids over the next day or so. Ryder nodded and headed out to complete the task, grateful for something productive to do with his restless energy. As he worked the pump handle, filling bucket after bucket with cool, clear water, several townspeople approached with questions about the woman he had brought in. He answered tersely, offering few details beyond the basic facts. The woman's story was hers to tell when she woke, not his to share with curious gossips. By the time the sun set and darkness claimed the valley, Ryder had settled into a chair beside the examination table where the woman slept. Doc Miller had moved to his desk to work on paperwork, leaving Ryder to his vigil. The steady sound of her breathing filled the small cabin, a comforting rhythm that eased something tight in his chest. She stirred as full night fell, her eyes opening slowly to take in her surroundings. This time, awareness filled those blue-gray eyes immediately, along with wariness and confusion. Her gaze found Ryder sitting beside her, and she studied him with an intensity that made him shift in his chair. You are the one who carried me down, she said, her voice rough but clearer than before. I remember now. Bits and pieces anyway. I am. Name is Ryder Owens. Found you collapsed on the trail. Rebecca Sutherland. She tried to push herself up on her elbows, but weakness forced her back down. Frustration flashed across her face. How long have I been here? Few hours. Doc says you need rest and fluids. You were in bad shape. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly as if gathering strength. I need to get to my sister. She is expecting me. She will be worried. Where is your sister? Near Leadville. She married a homesteader there last year. I was traveling from Denver to reach her. Ryder frowned. Leadville is another 30 miles northwest from here, and you were heading the wrong direction on that trail. How long have you been traveling? I left Denver 5 days ago. I had a horse, but she went lame 2 days back. I had to leave her at her ranch and continue on foot. I thought I could manage the mountain trails, but I underestimated the distance and the heat. Her voice carried self-recrimination. I should have stayed at the ranch and arranged for another horse. Why did you not? Rebecca's jaw set in a stubborn line. My sister's last letter sounded desperate. Her husband was injured, and she needed help with their homestead before winter. I could not afford to wait around for days when she needed me. Ryder felt a grudging respect for her determination, even if it had nearly cost her life. Noble sentiment, but you cannot help anyone if you die on a mountain trail. These territories are not like your eastern cities. The land here kills the unprepared. I am aware of that now, thank you. Despite her weakened condition, her tone carried steel. How much do I owe you for your assistance, Mr. Owens? The question took him aback. Owe me? You do not owe me anything. You carried me 5 miles down a mountain. That is no small feat. Surely your time and effort are worth compensation. Ryder's frown deepened. I did not help you for money, Miss Sutherland. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, the only thing to do. Something in her expression softened. Then I owe you my life. That is a debt I cannot repay. You do not owe me that either. Just get better and try not to do anything so foolish again. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I will endeavor to avoid collapsing on mountain trails in the future. Doc Miller approached the table, drawing their attention. How are you feeling, young lady? Weak as a kitten, but better than before. Thank you for your care. You have Ryder here to thank for that. Without his quick action, you would not be having this conversation. The doctor checked her pulse and felt her forehead. Fever is down, which is good. You need to stay put for at least 2 days, drink plenty of fluids, and eat when you can stomach it. No arguments. Rebecca looked like she wanted to argue anyway, but she bit back the protest. 2 days. Then I can continue to my sister's homestead. Not alone, you cannot, Ryder heard himself say before his brain caught up with his mouth. Those trails are treacherous, and you clearly do not know them. You would end up lost or worse. I cannot simply impose on strangers to escort me across 30 miles of wilderness. You are not imposing. I am offering. Even as the words left his mouth, Ryder wondered what possessed him to make such a commitment. He had spent 10 years avoiding entanglements, preferring his solitary existence in the mountains to the complications of human company. Yet here he sat, volunteering to guide this stubborn, beautiful woman across some of the roughest country in Colorado. Rebecca studied him with those storm-cloud eyes, searching for something in his weathered face. Why would you do that? You do not know me. Because your sister needs you, and you will not reach her alive without help. Simple as that. Nothing is ever simple, Mr. Owens. Ryder. And sometimes things are exactly as simple as they appear. The corner of her mouth lifted again in that almost smile. Very well, Ryder. If you are determined to play my guardian angel, I suppose I should be grateful rather than suspicious. Both would be appropriate. You should always be suspicious of strangers, even ones who rescue you. But in this case, I promise my intentions are honorable. Doc Miller cleared his throat. This is all very heartwarming, but my patient needs rest. Ryder, if you insist on playing nursemaid, at least let her sleep. You could use some rest yourself. The boarding house has rooms. Ryder pushed himself out of the chair, his protesting muscles reminding him exactly how taxing his day had been. I will be back in the morning to check on you, Miss Sutherland. Rebecca, if we are going to be traveling companions, formality seems excessive. Rebecca, then, sleep well. He stepped out into the cool mountain night. the temperature having dropped significantly after sundown as it always did at this elevation. Stars blazed overhead in brilliant profusion, undimmed by city lights or smoke. Ryder drew in a deep breath of pine-scented air and tried to make sense of the strange pull he felt toward the woman lying in Doc Miller's cabin. She was beautiful, certainly, even weakened by her ordeal. But he had known beautiful women before and walked away without a second thought. Something else drew him to Rebecca Sutherland, something in her stubborn determination and fierce independence. She reminded him of the mountains themselves, beautiful but dangerous, demanding respect. He collected Thunder from where he had left the horse at the livery, and saw to the animal's care before heading to the boarding house. The proprietor, a widow named Martha Hayes, gave him a room on the second floor and a knowing look that suggested the whole town already knew about the woman he had carried down from the mountain. "She is lucky you found her when you did," Martha said as she handed him the key. "The good Lord works in mysterious ways." Ryder grunted noncommittally and climbed the stairs to his room. He stretched out on the bed without bothering to undress beyond removing his boots, and sleep claimed him almost immediately. The next morning dawned bright and clear, promising another hot day. Ryder woke at first light from habit, his body accustomed to rising with the sun. He cleaned up as best he could with the basin of water in his room, wishing he had thought to pack fresh clothes. The shirt and pants he wore carried several days' worth of trail dust and sweat, hardly appropriate attire for visiting a lady. But Rebecca had already seen him at his roughest, so he supposed it made little difference now. Doc Miller's cabin showed signs of early activity when Ryder arrived. He found Rebecca awake and sitting up on the examination table, sipping from a cup of broth. Color had returned to her face and her eyes held the clarity of someone firmly back in the land of the living. "You look better," Ryder said by way of greeting. "I feel better. Still weak, but human again." She set down the cup and regarded him with curiosity. "Did you sleep well?" "Well enough. You?" "When unconsciousness blurs into actual sleep, it is hard to say, but I woke feeling more myself." She paused, then asked quietly, "Tell me truthfully, how bad was it? The doctor said I nearly died." Ryder pulled up the chair from last night and sat, his expression serious. "It was bad. If I had found you an hour later, maybe even 30 minutes, the outcome would have been different. What possessed you to keep walking in that heat when you must have known you were in trouble?" Rebecca looked down at her hands. "I kept thinking the next rise would bring me within sight of civilization. I would rest for a minute in whatever shade I could find, then push on. By the time I realized how serious my condition had become, I could barely think straight. Everything became about putting one foot in front of the other. Then the ground rushed up to meet me, and that is all I remember until waking in your arms." The last part came out softer, almost shy, and Ryder felt heat rise to his face that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "You scared me pretty bad when I first saw you lying there, thought you might already be gone. But you checked anyway. You did not just assume the worst and ride on." "Of course not. What kind of man would do that? You would be surprised." Bitterness tinged her words. "Not everyone stops to help strangers, especially not women traveling alone." Ryder wanted to ask what experience had taught her such cynicism, but Doc Miller entered before he could frame the question. "Good, you are both here. Rebecca, you are recovering faster than I expected, which is a testament to your constitution. But I meant what I said about taking it easy for at least another day. Your body has been through trauma. I understand, but I cannot stay here indefinitely. I do not have the funds to pay for extended medical care or lodging." "We will worry about payment later," the doctor said dismissively. "Right now, your health is what matters. Nevertheless, I need to be practical. My sister sent me what money she could spare for travel, but I have already spent most of it getting this far. Ryder spoke up. The boarding house is not expensive. I will cover your room for a couple days. Absolutely not. I cannot accept charity. It is not charity. Consider it part of my fee for escorting you to your sister's homestead. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. You said I did not owe you anything. I changed my mind. Your company on the trail will be payment enough. Ryder crossed his arms over his broad chest, his expression brooking no argument. You are staying at the boarding house tonight, and that is final. Doc needs his examination table back. For a moment he thought she might argue further, but then she sighed. Very well, but I insist on finding a way to repay your kindness once I reach my sister. If it makes you feel better, we can discuss it then. Doc Miller looked between them with barely concealed amusement. Well, now that is settled, let me give you some instructions, Rebecca. You need to continue drinking water regularly, eat small amounts frequently, and rest as much as possible. No strenuous activity for at least a week. How will I manage 30 miles of mountain travel without strenuous activity? We will take it slow, Ryder assured her. 3 or 4 days instead of pushing hard. There are good camping spots along the way where we can rest. The thought of spending 3 or 4 days alone on the trail with this rugged mountain man sent an unexpected flutter through Rebecca's stomach. She told herself it was merely residual weakness from her ordeal, not attraction to the man who had saved her life. But when she met those intense green eyes, something undeniable passed between them. Doc Miller cleared his throat. I will leave you two to work out the details. Ryder, help her over to the boarding house when she is ready. Martha will take good care of her. After the doctor departed, an awkward silence stretched between them. Ryder found himself studying Rebecca more closely now that she was awake and alert. Her auburn hair, cleaned and pinned back properly, caught the morning light streaming through the window. The simple dress someone had provided hung loosely on her slender frame, but he could see she possessed natural grace in the way she held herself. Her features were delicate but not fragile, her jaw carrying the same stubborn set he had noticed last night. What are you thinking? Rebecca asked, catching him staring. That you are tougher than you look. Most city women would still be hysterical after what you went through. I am not most city women, and I am not entirely a city woman despite spending the last few years in Denver. I grew up on a farm in Ohio. I know hard work and harsh conditions. What brought you to Denver? A shadow passed across her face. The war left my family in difficult circumstances. My father and brother both died at Shiloh. My mother passed a few years later. My sister and I had to find our own way. She met her husband in Denver and moved out here when he wanted to try homesteading. I stayed behind working as a seamstress. You could sew anywhere. Why did you stay in Denver? Rebecca looked away. I was engaged, or thought I was. Turns out the man I planned to marry had other ideas once he realized I came with no dowry or family money. He ended our engagement rather publicly and rather cruelly. Anger flared in Ryder's chest on her behalf. The man was a fool, perhaps, but he was an honest fool in the end. Better to discover his true character before the wedding than after. She straightened her shoulders, clearly wanting to move past the subject. In any case, that is all behind me now. My sister needs me, and I have no reason to return to Denver. You plan to stay with her permanently. If she will have me, I can help with the homestead, earn my keep. It is not much of a plan, but it is all I have at the moment. Ryder found himself bothered by the idea of this woman spending her life as an unpaid servant on her sister's homestead. She deserved better than that. But he kept the thought to himself. We should get you over to the boarding house. Can you walk? I believe so. I feel much steadier than yesterday. He stood and offered his hand to help her down from the examination table. Her fingers felt small and delicate in his calloused palm, but her grip was firm. She swayed slightly when her feet hit the floor, and Ryder immediately steadied her with his other hand on her elbow. "Easy now. No rush." They made their way slowly outside, Ryder matching his pace to her careful steps. The morning sun already promised heat to come, but for now the air remained pleasantly cool. Several townspeople called greetings to Ryder, their curious gazes sliding to Rebecca with barely concealed interest. She held her head high, ignoring the stares. Martha Hayes met them at the boarding house door, her round face creased with maternal concern. "Oh, you poor dear. Come right in. I have a lovely room all ready for you on the first floor so you will not have to manage stairs." "That is very kind of you, Mrs. Hayes. Just Martha, dear. Let me show you to your room. There is fresh water for washing, and I will bring you some breakfast shortly. You look like you could use some feeding up." Ryder followed as Martha led Rebecca to a small but clean room at the back of the house. A simple bed with a colorful quilt dominated the space, along with a dresser, washstand, and a chair by the window that looked out on a small garden. "This is perfect, thank you," Rebecca said sincerely. "You just rest and recover. If you need anything at all, you call for me." Martha patted her arm and bustled out, leaving Ryder and Rebecca alone again. "I should let you rest," Ryder said, though he found himself reluctant to leave. "Will you come back later?" "I would like to discuss the journey to my sister's homestead. I want to understand what I am getting into." "I will come by this afternoon. That will give you time to eat and sleep some more." Rebecca nodded, then impulsively reached out and touched his arm. "Ryder, thank you, truly. I owe you my life, whether you want to acknowledge the debt or not." The warmth of her hand on his arm seemed to burn through his shirt sleeve. "You are welcome. Now get some rest before Doc Miller comes after both of us." He left quickly, needing distance to sort through the unfamiliar emotions churning in his chest. In 10 years of living in these mountains, he had grown comfortable with solitude, even preferred it. Women had been rare diversions when he ventured into settlements for supplies, pleasant enough but ultimately forgettable. Nothing about Rebecca Sutherland felt forgettable. Ryder spent the morning seeing to practical matters, purchasing supplies for the journey ahead and arranging for Thunder to be reshod. He also visited the general store, and after some awkward deliberation, purchased a split skirt and sturdy boots in what he hoped was Rebecca's size. She could not make a multi-day mountain trek in a dress, and he doubted she had come prepared with appropriate clothing. When he returned to the boarding house that afternoon, he found Rebecca sitting in the garden behind the building, her face turned up to catch the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. She wore a different dress, this one a simple gray cotton that fit better than the borrowed garment from earlier. Her hair hung in a loose braid over one shoulder, making her look younger and somehow more vulnerable. "You should be resting," he said as he approached. She opened her eyes and turned toward him with a slight smile. "I have been resting all day. I needed fresh air and sunlight. Dr. Miller said as long as I stayed in the shade and did not overexert myself, a little activity would be fine." Ryder sat on the bench beside her, the package from the general store in his hands. "I brought you something. You will need proper clothes for the trail." Rebecca opened the package and pulled out the split skirt and boots, her expression unreadable. "This is very thoughtful but also very presumptuous. How did you know my size?" "I did not. I guessed. If they do not fit, I can exchange them." She held up the skirt, examining it with a practiced eye. "They look about right. I am impressed by your attention to detail, Mr. Owens." "Ryder," he corrected. "And it is simple observation. I have hauled enough game to judge weight and proportions accurately." So you are comparing me to dead animals now? How flattering. He felt his face heat. That came out wrong. I just meant I have a good eye for such things. Rebecca's laugh rang out, light and genuine, transforming her face into something luminous. I am teasing you. I appreciate the gesture, truly. And you are right, I cannot hike mountain trails in a dress. This will be much more practical. Ryder relaxed slightly, relieved she took no offense. We should discuss the route. I want you to know what you are facing. All right. Tell me honestly. The trail from here to Leadville follows rough country. We will gain and lose elevation multiple times, cross at least 2 significant streams, and spend 3 nights camping in the open. The days will be hot, the nights cold. You will be saddle sore and exhausted. It will not be pleasant. But you believe I can manage it in my current condition. If we take it slow and you do not push yourself stupidly, yes, I believe you can manage. But you need to promise me you will speak up if something is wrong. No trying to be tough and nearly killing yourself again. Rebecca met his eyes directly. I promise. I learned my lesson about underestimating these mountains. I will defer to your judgment on the trail. Good. He paused, then added, I arranged for another horse. She is gentle and sure-footed. You will ride and I will lead. You will not ride. Thunder can carry supplies more easily without a rider, and I can set a better pace on foot. We will cover maybe 10 miles a day, camping at good sites I know along the way. Will we see anyone else on the trail? Possibly. Prospectors and trappers use these routes, but mostly we will be alone. Something flickered in Rebecca's expression, gone too quickly for him to identify. I suppose I should be nervous about spending days alone in the wilderness with a strange man. You should be. Like I said, you should always be cautious. Yet I find I trust you. Is that foolish of me? Ryder considered the question seriously. Trust should be earned, not given freely. But I swear to you on whatever honor I possess that you are safe with me. I will protect you and get you to your sister unharmed. I believe you. She smiled softly. There is something about you, Ryder Owens, a fundamental decency that shows in everything you do. You cannot fake that. Her words affected him more than they should have. He cleared his throat roughly. We should leave day after tomorrow if Doc Miller agrees you are strong enough. That gives you one more full day to recover. I will be ready. They spent the remainder of the afternoon discussing details of the journey. Ryder described the landmarks they would pass, the terrain they would cover, and what she should expect each day. Rebecca listened attentively, asking intelligent questions that demonstrated she took the upcoming trek seriously. As they talked, Ryder found himself increasingly impressed by her quick mind and determination. When evening fell and Martha called them in for supper, Ryder joined Rebecca and the other boarders at the dining table. The meal proved simple but hearty, beef stew with fresh bread and butter. Rebecca ate slowly but steadily, and Ryder noted with satisfaction that she cleaned her plate. She needed to rebuild her strength. After supper, he walked her back to her room, the evening air turning crisp as the sun sank behind the mountains. Get a good night's sleep, he told her at her door. Tomorrow you should rest more and maybe take a short walk to start building your stamina. Yes, sir, she said with mock seriousness, but her eyes sparkled with humor. I am serious, Rebecca. I need you as strong as possible before we start. I know you are, and I appreciate your concern. She placed her hand briefly on his arm as she had that morning. Good night, Ryder. Good night. He forced himself to walk away, though part of him wanted to linger. Back in his own room, he lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself that the interest he felt toward Rebecca Sutherland was merely concern for her welfare. But he had never been good at lying, even to himself. The next day passed in a similar fashion. Ryder checked on Rebecca in the morning, satisfied himself that she continued to improve, then spent his time preparing for the journey. He cleaned and oiled his rifle, packed supplies, and studied the sky for signs of changing weather. Everything indicated fair conditions would hold for at least the next several days, which would make the trek easier. He found Rebecca in the afternoon taking a walk along the main street of Cedar Springs, moving slowly but steadily. She had donned the split skirt and boots he bought her, and the practical clothing suited her far better than fancy dresses ever could. Several men stopped to tip their hats to her, and Ryder felt an unfamiliar possessiveness rise in his chest. "How are you feeling?" he asked when he caught up to her, stronger, still not back to full capacity but much improved from 2 days ago. She gestured at her outfit. "The clothes fit perfectly. You have a good eye." "I am glad they work. You will need them tomorrow. Are we still planning to leave at first light?" "Yes. Doc Miller examined you this morning and agreed you are fit to travel as long as we take precautions." Rebecca nodded, then turned to face him fully. "Ryder, I want to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." "All right. Why are you doing this? And please do not say it is simple decency. You have already gone far beyond what any reasonable person would expect. You saved my life. You are paying for my lodging, you bought me clothes, and now you are giving up days of your time to escort me across treacherous mountains. Why?" Ryder struggled for an answer that would satisfy both of them. The truth was, he did not fully understand his own motivations. Something about Rebecca called to him on a level he could not articulate, made him want to protect her and be near her in ways that terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. "I do not have a good answer," he finally admitted. "Something about you, about this situation, feels right. I cannot explain it better than that. If it makes you uncomfortable, I can arrange for someone else to guide you." "No," she spoke quickly, emphatically. "I want you to guide me. I trust you. I just wanted to understand. When you figure it out, let me know," he said with a wry smile. "Because I am as confused as you are." They walked together back toward the boarding house, falling into a comfortable silence. Ryder felt the eyes of the townspeople on them, knowing gossip about the mountain man and the woman he rescued was probably spreading through Cedar Springs like wildfire. Let them talk. He had stopped caring about other people's opinions years ago. That evening, Ryder went over the pack supplies one final time, making sure he had everything they would need. Extra rope, medical supplies, sufficient food and water containers, flint and steel for fire starting, blankets, and his reliable rifle with plenty of ammunition. He packed light but thorough, knowing he would be leading the spare horse while Rebecca rode. Sleep came reluctantly that night, his mind already on the trail ahead and the woman who would be depending on him. He found himself looking forward to the journey with an anticipation that had nothing to do with travel and everything to do with spending uninterrupted time in Rebecca's company. Dawn broke clear and cool, perfect conditions for starting their trek. Ryder collected Rebecca from the boarding house, pleased to see her dressed in the practical trail clothes and looking alert despite the early hour. Martha Hayes packed them extra food for the journey and made Rebecca promise to send word once she reached her sister safely. Doc Miller appeared as they prepared to depart, giving Rebecca a final examination. "You are healing well, but remember what I said about not pushing too hard. Listen to your body." "I will, doctor. Thank you for everything." They rode out of Cedar Springs as the sun crested the eastern peaks, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Ryder walked ahead leading Thunder, who bore most of their supplies, while Rebecca followed on the gentle mare he had acquired. The trail wound upward through pine forests, the morning air sharp with the scent of evergreen and wildflowers. For the first hour, they traveled in companionable silence, both focused on finding their rhythm. Ryder kept the pace moderate, regularly glancing back to check on Rebecca. She sat the horse well, her posture straight despite her recent ordeal. When they stopped at a stream to water the horses and rest, he was pleased to see color in her cheeks and brightness in her eyes. "How are you holding up?" he asked, offering her his canteen. "Well, actually, better than I expected. The morning air helps." She drank deeply, then passed the canteen back. "How much further today?" "We will cover about 8 miles and camp near a place called Twin Pines. There is good water there and shelter in case of weather. You know these trails well." "I have spent 10 years learning every path and landmark in these mountains. They are my home more than any building ever was." "What brought you out here? To this life?" Ryder settled against a boulder, considering how much to share. "The war. I fought for the Union, saw things no man should see. When it ended, I could not go back to civilization. Too many people, too much noise, too many memories. I came west looking for space to breathe and found these mountains. They asked nothing of me except respect and offered everything I needed. You ever get lonely? Sometimes. But loneliness feels safer than the alternative." Rebecca studied him with those perceptive storm cloud eyes. "What alternative? Caring too much, losing people, pain." He pushed himself to his feet, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "We should keep moving." They continued onward, the trail growing steeper as they climbed toward a high pass. Ryder watched Rebecca carefully for signs of fatigue, but she seemed to be managing well. Around midday, they stopped again to eat a simple meal of jerky and hardtack, sitting in the shade of a massive pine. "Tell me about your sister," Ryder said, curious about the woman they were working so hard to reach. Rebecca's face softened. "Deanna is 2 years older than me, and she has always been the brave one. When our parents died and we found ourselves alone, she took charge. She found us work, managed our small savings, made sure we survived. She met her husband, Peter Sterling, in Denver. He worked as a freighter, hauling goods to the mining camps. He saved enough to file a homestead claim near Leadville and convinced Diana to marry him and move west. You said in her letter she mentioned he was injured." "Yes, some kind of accident. She did not provide details, only that he could not work and they were struggling. I left Denver the day I received the letter." Worry creased her brow. "I pray we are not too late to help." "We will get you there," Ryder assured her. "And if your sister's husband needs medical attention, we can bring Doc Miller up from Cedar Springs." "You would do that, of course." "Why would I not? You have already done so much." Ryder shrugged. "Helping people is not a limited resource. I can assist you and your family without it costing me anything important. It costs you time. Time you could spend doing whatever it is you do in these mountains. Trapping, hunting, prospecting a little, nothing that cannot wait." He stood and began repacking their supplies. "Come on. We have a few more hours before we reach Twin Pines." The afternoon proved warmer, and Ryder called more frequent rest stops to make sure Rebecca stayed hydrated and did not overexert herself. She bore the journey with impressive stoicism, never complaining despite what must have been growing discomfort. By the time they reached Twin Pines as the sun began its descent, Ryder could see exhaustion in the set of her shoulders. The camping spot lived up to its name, 2 massive pine trees standing sentinel over a small clearing with a creek running along one edge. Ryder helped Rebecca down from her horse, his hands spanning her slender waist easily. She swayed slightly, and he kept his grip until she steadied. "You did well today," he said. "Much better than I expected. I feel like I have been beaten with sticks, but I am upright and breathing, so I suppose that counts as success," he chuckled. "Sit and rest. I will set up camp." Too tired to argue, Rebecca settled on a fallen log and watched as Ryder efficiently established their campsite. He moved with practiced economy of motion, clearly a man who had done this thousands of times. He gathered firewood, cleared a fire pit, arranged stones in a circle, and had a healthy blaze going within minutes. Next came the horses, which he unsaddled and hobbled near good grazing. Then he set about making camp, unrolling blankets and setting up a simple lean-to shelter using rope and canvas. "Can I help?" Rebecca asked, feeling guilty about sitting idle. "Just rest. You have done your work for the day by keeping up with the pace. I feel useless. You are recovering from near-fatal heat exhaustion. Give yourself grace." He glanced at her with a slight smile. "Besides, I have been doing this alone for years. I have a system. You would just mess it up." She laughed despite her fatigue. "Well, when you put it that way." As darkness fell and stars emerged overhead, Ryder prepared a simple meal of beans and salt pork cooked over the fire. The aroma made Rebecca's stomach growl audibly, reminding her how little she had eaten during the day's ride. They ate in comfortable silence, the crackling fire and distant sounds of the forest the only accompaniment. "The stars are incredible," Rebecca said, gazing upward. "You never see them like this in the city. One of the things I love most about this life. The sky out here reminds you how small you are, puts things in perspective. You truly never miss civilization. The conveniences, the society." Ryder considered the question as he cleaned their plates with sand and water from the creek. "I miss fresh bread sometimes, and decent whiskey, but not enough to give up this." He gestured broadly at the wilderness surrounding them. "Out here, life is honest. The mountains do not lie or manipulate. They are simply what they are, and you survive by respecting that." It sounds lonely. Solitary, yes, but lonely, not always. He met her eyes across the fire. "Loneliness comes from being alone with yourself when you do not like who you are. I made peace with myself a long time ago. I envy that peace. I am still working toward it. You will get there. You are stronger than you realize." Rebecca pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders as the mountain cold set in. "How did you become so wise, Ryder Owens?" "I am not wise. I just learned from making a lot of mistakes." He rose and added more wood to the fire. "You should sleep. We have another long day tomorrow." "Where will you sleep?" "Other side of the fire. I am a light sleeper. Anything approaches camp, I will know about it. Are there dangers out here?" "Bears, wolves." "Some. But they generally avoid human camps if we respect their territory. The fire will keep most animals away." He saw the worry in her expression and added gently, "You are safe, Rebecca, I promise." She believed him. Against all reason and her limited acquaintance with this man, she trusted him completely. She settled into the bedroll he had prepared for her, the ground hard beneath but the blankets warm. Across the fire, she watched Ryder arrange his own sleeping area, his movements efficient even in the darkness. "Ryder," she called softly. "Yes, thank you, not just for today, but for everything. You are welcome. Now sleep." Despite her exhaustion, sleep came slowly. Rebecca lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the wilderness night, watching the play of firelight on the trees overhead. Across the flames, she could see Ryder's silhouette, sitting upright with his rifle across his knees, keeping watch. Something about his steady presence eased her nerves, made her feel safer than she had in years. She must have eventually drifted off, because the next thing she knew, morning light filtered through the trees and the smell of coffee filled the air. Ryder crouched by the fire, tending a battered pot that he must have produced from their supplies. "Good morning," he said when he noticed her stirring. "Coffee is almost ready." Rebecca sat up, every muscle in her body protesting. She felt like she had aged 20 years overnight. Groaning, She forced herself to stand and make her way to the creek to wash her face. The icy water shocked her awake more effectively than any amount of coffee could have. When she returned to the fire, Ryder handed her a tin cup filled with strong, black coffee. She wrapped her hands around the warm metal and sipped gratefully. "How far today?" she asked. 10 miles if you are up for it. The terrain is a bit easier, fewer steep climbs. I can manage." She spoke with more confidence than she felt, but she refused to be the weak link in their journey. They broke camp efficiently, Ryder doing most of the heavy work while Rebecca helped where she could. Soon they were back on the trail, following a path that wound through spectacular alpine meadows carpeted with wildflowers. Despite her sore muscles, Rebecca found herself enchanted by the raw beauty of the landscape. "I can see why you love it here," she said during one of their rest stops. "It is like the world before people complicated it." "Exactly." Ryder looked pleased that she understood. "Out here, things make sense." What does not make sense in civilization? All of it. The politics, the posturing, the constant judgment and competition. Men killed each other by the thousands during the war, and for what? Nothing changed except families were destroyed and the land soaked in blood. Bitterness crept into his voice. "I decided if I survived, I would never participate in that madness again. But you cannot hide in the mountains forever." "Why not? I am not hiding. I am living the life I choose." Rebecca fell silent, recognizing she had touched a nerve. She changed the subject to safer topics, asking him to identify the various plants and animals they encountered. Ryder proved to be a knowledgeable guide, pointing out edible berries, medicinal herbs, and animal tracks with the expertise of someone intimately connected to this environment. As the day progressed, Rebecca felt herself relaxing into the rhythm of travel. Her body still ached, but she adapted to the horse's gait and the long hours in the saddle. More importantly, she found herself increasingly comfortable in Ryder's presence. He possessed a quiet competence that inspired confidence, never rushing or showing frustration with their pace. They made camp that evening beside a small lake, its surface mirror smooth and reflecting the surrounding peaks in perfect detail. While Ryder set up camp, Rebecca walked along the shoreline, drawn by the serene beauty of the setting. She found a flat rock at the water's edge and sat, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant colors as it set. Ryder found her there a while later, sitting quietly. "Dinner is ready. This place is magical," she said without turning. "I could stay here forever. It is one of my favorite spots." He sat beside her on the rock, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his large frame. "I camped here for 2 weeks once, just soaking in the peace. 2 weeks alone. I had my horse in the wilderness. I did not feel alone." Rebecca turned to study his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the slight hook in his nose that suggested it had been broken at some point. "Do you ever want companionship, someone to share this life with?" "I used to think I did not. Now I am not so sure." His green eyes found hers and something intense passed between them. People change, or maybe circumstances change them. The moment stretched, charged with unspoken possibilities. Rebecca felt her heart rate accelerate, her breath coming shallow. She recognized the feeling as attraction, strong and undeniable. But was it real, or simply gratitude and proximity creating an illusion? Ryder looked away first, pushing to his feet. "We should eat before the food gets cold." The spell broken, Rebecca followed him back to the fire. They ate dinner in near silence, both seemingly lost in their own thoughts. Afterward, as Rebecca cleaned the plates, Ryder pulled out a harmonica from his pack and began to play. The mournful melody drifted across the lake, beautiful and lonely. "I did not know you played," Rebecca said when he paused, "something I picked up during the war. Music was one of the few things that kept some of us sane in the camps. "It is beautiful, play more." He obliged, and Rebecca settled back to listen, watching the stars emerge overhead as darkness claimed the lake. The music spoke of longing and loss, of roads not taken and choices made. It touched something deep in her soul, bringing unexpected tears to her eyes. When Ryder finally put away the harmonica, Rebecca wiped at her cheeks, hoping he had not noticed her emotional response. But those sharp green eyes missed nothing. "Did I upset you?" he asked with concern. "No, the opposite. Your music is just very moving." She smiled through her tears. "Thank you for sharing it with me. You are welcome." He added wood to the fire, the flames leaping higher. "You should get some sleep. Tomorrow is our longest day. How much farther to my sister's homestead? If we make good time, we will arrive by tomorrow evening. But that depends on several factors, including how you hold up." "I will hold up. I need to reach Deanna." "I know you will." Rebecca lay down in her bedroll, her body grateful for the rest even as her mind raced with thoughts she could not quiet. She found herself increasingly drawn to Ryder, fascinated by the contradictions he presented. He was powerful yet gentle, solitary yet attentive, gruff yet capable of creating beautiful music. She had never met anyone like him. The third day of travel proved the most challenging. The trail climbed steeply through rocky terrain, forcing them to dismount and lead the horses through treacherous sections. Rebecca's legs trembled with exhaustion by midday, but she gritted her teeth and pushed forward. Ryder offered to stop and rest, but she refused, determined to reach her sister before nightfall. "You are pushing yourself too hard," Ryder warned during one brief rest. "This is exactly what got you in trouble before. I can make it. I have to make it. Not if you collapse again. Then we lose even more time." Rebecca knew he was right, but anxiety drove her forward. What if they arrived too late? What if Diana needed her desperately and she had wasted days recovering from her own foolishness? The guilt gnawed at her. As if sensing her turmoil, Ryder placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We will get there, Rebecca. A few hours will not make the difference, but you arriving healthy and able to help will." His words and touch calmed her racing thoughts. She nodded. "You are right. I am sorry for being difficult." "You are not difficult. You are worried about someone you love. That is admirable, not difficult." They took a longer rest, eating and drinking while the horses grazed nearby. Ryder pulled out his harmonica again, playing softer tunes this time, clearly trying to soothe her nerves. It worked. By the time they resumed travel, Rebecca felt more centered, better able to manage her anxiety. The afternoon brought them through a narrow canyon with sheer walls rising hundreds of feet on either side. The trail followed a stream through the canyon bottom, forcing them to ford the water multiple times. Ryder went first each time, testing the depth and finding the safest route before helping Rebecca across. As they emerged from the canyon into more open country, Ryder pointed ahead. "Beyond that ridge is the Leadville area. Your sister's homestead should be another 2 miles northwest of the settlement." Hope and apprehension warred in Rebecca's chest. "We are almost there." "Almost. How are you feeling?" "Tired, sore, anxious, but also relieved." "I cannot thank you enough for getting me here safely. The journey is not over yet. Let us cover these last miles before we celebrate." They pushed on as the sun began its descent, the long shadows of evening stretching across the landscape. The terrain opened up into rolling hills dotted with stands of aspen and pine. In the distance, Rebecca could see smoke rising from chimneys, evidence of human habitation. Ryder consulted a rough map he produced from his saddlebag. "Your sister's place should be near Willow Creek, which runs through this valley. We will follow the creek north until we spot the homestead." The search took longer than expected as darkness fell. Several homesteads dotted the area, but none matched the description Deanna had provided in her letters. Finally, as the last light faded from the sky, they spotted a small cabin with a lean-to barn set back from the creek. A garden plot showed signs of recent work, and chickens scratched in a wire pen beside the house. "That has to be it," Rebecca said, her voice tight with anticipation. They approached slowly, Ryder calling out a greeting to avoid startling the occupants. "Hello, the house. We mean no harm. We are looking for the Sterling homestead." The cabin door opened cautiously, and a woman stepped out holding a lantern. Even in the dim light, Rebecca recognized her sister's silhouette, Deanna. She practically fell from her horse in her haste to dismount. "Rebecca! Oh my God, Rebecca!" Deanna set down the lantern and ran to meet her sister, and they collided in a fierce embrace. Ryder dismounted and stood back, watching the reunion with quiet satisfaction. He had gotten Rebecca to her destination safely, his self-appointed mission complete. He should feel relieved. Instead, he felt an unexpected hollowness, as if something important was ending. Deanna pulled back from the embrace, holding Rebecca at arm's length to examine her. "You look terrible. What happened? I expected you days ago. I was so worried. It is a long story. But I am here now, and I am fine, thanks to this man." Rebecca turned to gesture at Ryder. "Deanna, this is Ryder Owens. He saved my life and escorted me here. Ryder, my sister Deanna Sterling." Deanna's eyes widened as she took in Ryder's imposing figure. "Saved your life? Rebecca, what happened?" "I told you it is a long story. Can we go inside? I would love to sit in a real chair." Of course. "Mr. Owens, please come in. You must be exhausted from the journey." Ryder hesitated. "I should see to the horses first. There is a corral behind the barn. Please make yourself comfortable. It is the least we can offer after what you have done for my sister." Inside the modest cabin, a man lay on a bed against the far wall, his leg bound in splints. He attempted to sit up as they entered, wincing with pain. "Stay still, Peter," Deanna commanded. "This is my sister Rebecca, finally arrived." "About time," Peter Sterling said with a weak smile. "Deanna has been beside herself with worry." Deanna bustled about, pouring water for washing and putting a kettle on the stove. "Sit, both of you. Rebecca, you need to tell me everything." Over the next hour, Rebecca recounted her journey from Denver, her collapse on the trail, and Ryder's rescue. Deanna listened with growing horror, her face pale. "You could have died. Rebecca, why did you not wait and arrange proper transportation? Your letter made it sound urgent." "I thought I could manage the trails. I was wrong." Deanna turned to Ryder, who sat silently in the corner, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the domestic setting. "Mr. Owens, I cannot express how grateful we are. My sister is everything to me. If you had not found her—" "I am glad I was in the right place at the right time," Ryder said simply. "You did more than happen to be there. Rebecca says you carried her 5 miles down the mountain, paid for her lodging, bought her clothes, and escorted her all this way. That is extraordinary kindness." Ryder shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they would not have," Deanna said firmly. "You are a good man, Ryder Owens. Please stay with us tonight. Rest. Let us show you some hospitality in return." "I do not want to impose. It is not an imposition. We have little, but what we have we share gladly with friends." Rebecca added her voice to her sister's invitation. "Please stay, Ryder, at least for tonight." He looked between the two women and finally nodded. "One night, then I will head back to Cedar Springs." Deanna prepared a simple meal from their meager supplies, apologizing for its plainness. But to Ryder, who often subsisted on hardtack and jerky for weeks at a time, the fresh bread and vegetable stew tasted like a feast. As they ate, Peter explained his injury. Stupid accident. I was working on expanding the barn when a support beam fell and broke my leg in 2 places. Deanna splinted it as best she could, but I cannot put weight on it. Cannot work the homestead like this. Frustration and shame colored his voice. We are behind on everything. The garden needs tending, fences need repair, and winter is not that far off. I can help, Rebecca said immediately. That is why I came. 2 women cannot manage all the work this place requires, Peter said bleakly. I have failed as a provider. You have not failed, Deanna said sharply. Accidents happen. We will manage. Ryder spoke up quietly. If you do not mind the help, I could stay a few days, get some of the heavy work done before I head back. All 3 turned to stare at him. Deanna found her voice first. Mr. Owens, we could not possibly ask that of you. You have already done so much. You are not asking, I am offering. Truth is, I have nowhere pressing to be, and I am handy with carpentry and farm work. Grew up on a farm before the war. We cannot pay you, Peter said bluntly. I do not want payment. Consider it helping neighbors. But we are not neighbors. You live days away. Out here, everyone is a neighbor. Ryder's tone left no room for argument. I will stay a week or so, help get things in order, then I will head back to my mountains. Rebecca felt warmth flood through her chest at his generosity, but also a sharp pang at the thought of him leaving. Over the past few days, she had grown accustomed to his steady presence, found comfort in his quiet competence. The thought of him disappearing back into the wilderness left her feeling bereft. Diana looked like she might cry. I do not know what to say. Thank you seems inadequate. Then do not say anything. Just point me toward what needs doing and I will get started tomorrow. They talked long into the evening, Deanna catching Rebecca up on a year's worth of news while Peter and Ryder discussed the work required on the homestead. Finally, exhaustion claimed them all. Deanna arranged blankets for Ryder on the floor near the fireplace, while Rebecca would share the small loft space with her sister. As Rebecca climbed the ladder to the loft, she glanced back at Ryder settling into his makeshift bed. Their eyes met across the cabin, and something unspoken passed between them. She wanted to say something to acknowledge the connection growing between them, but no words seemed adequate. Good night, Ryder, she said softly. Good night, Rebecca. Sleep well. In the loft, Deanna immediately began interrogating her in whispers. Tell me the truth. What is between you and that mountain man? Nothing. He rescued me and brought me here, that is all. That is not all, and you know it. I saw how you looked at him, and how he looked at you. Rebecca's cheeks heated in the darkness. I barely know him. Sometimes you do not need long to recognize something real. Peter and I knew within days that we wanted to spend our lives together. Deanna gripped her sister's hand. He is a good man, Rebecca, I can see it. And he cares for you, whether either of you admits it yet. Even if that were true, which I am not saying it is, he lives alone in the mountains. That is the life he chose. I cannot imagine he wants to change it for a woman he has known less than a week. People change their plans for the right person. Just do not let fear hold you back from exploring what might be possible. Rebecca lay awake long after Deanna fell asleep, her sister's words echoing in her mind. Could there be something real developing between her and Ryder? And if so, what could possibly come of it? He had made his feelings about civilization clear. He wanted solitude, peace, distance from the complications of human relationships. But she had also heard the loneliness in his harmonica playing, seen the way he looked at her when he thought she was not watching. Maybe, just maybe, he was not as committed to his solitary existence as he claimed. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Ryder woke before dawn from habit, slipping outside to avoid disturbing the others. He found Peter already awake, struggling to maneuver on his splinted leg. Let me help you, Ryder said, offering his arm for support. "I hate being useless," Peter grumbled as Ryder helped him outside to the privy. "You are injured, not useless. Bones take time to heal. Time we do not have. Winter comes early at this elevation, and we are nowhere near prepared." After helping Peter back inside, Ryder spent time examining the homestead in the growing light. The cabin was solidly built but small, barely sufficient for 2 people, let alone 3. The barn needed work, several fences showed damage, and the garden had been neglected during Peter's injury. But none of it was insurmountable with hard work and time. Rebecca emerged from the cabin as the sun cleared the eastern mountains, her hair loose around her shoulders and her face still soft with sleep. Ryder's breath caught at the sight of her, backlit by golden morning light. "Could not sleep?" she asked, joining him by the corral. "I am an early riser. Did not mean to wake you. You did not. I am not used to sleeping late anyway." She looked around the homestead, taking in the work that needed doing. "This is more than a few days of work. Probably, but I can make good progress on the critical repairs." "Why are you really doing this, Ryder?" He considered lying or deflecting, but something in her direct gaze demanded honesty. "Because you care about your sister and your sister needs help. Because Peter seems like a decent man dealt a bad hand. And because—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. "Because," Rebecca prompted gently, "because I am not ready to say goodbye yet." The admission cost him, laid him bare in a way he had avoided for years. Rebecca stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of lavender that clung to her hair. "I am not ready either." The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Ryder raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His calloused fingers lingered against her soft cheek. "This is complicated," he said quietly. "Life is complicated. That does not make it wrong." Before either could say more, Diana emerged from the cabin calling that breakfast was ready. The spell broke, and they stepped apart, but something had shifted between them, acknowledged if not yet fully explored. The week that followed fell into a productive rhythm. Ryder worked on repairs from dawn to dusk, his powerful frame perfectly suited to the heavy labor required. He rebuilt the damaged sections of fence, reinforced the barn structure, and helped Diana and Rebecca prepare the garden for winter. Peter watched from his bed, offering advice and clearly frustrated by his inability to contribute physically. Rebecca found herself constantly aware of Ryder's presence, drawn to watch him work. There was something almost hypnotic about the play of muscles beneath his shirt, as he swung a hammer or hauled lumber. But more than physical attraction, she found herself captivated by his steady competence, his quiet kindness in dealing with Peter's frustration, his gentle humor that emerged more frequently as he grew comfortable with their small household. In the evenings, after supper, Ryder would pull out his harmonica and play while Diana knitted and Rebecca mended clothes. Peter carved small wooden toys, claiming he needed to keep his hands busy. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams and fears in the way people do when isolated from the broader world. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Diana asked Ryder about his family. Not much to tell. Parents had a small farm in Pennsylvania. 2 brothers, both died in the war. My father passed a few years before Fort Sumter, and my mother did not long survive losing her sons. The farm was sold to pay debts, nothing left to go back to even if I wanted. "I am sorry," Diana said softly. "The war took so much from so many." It did. But dwelling on loss does not bring anyone back. You keep moving forward or you die. Those are the only choices. Rebecca heard the pain beneath his matter-of-fact words. "Is that why you came west? to keep moving forward, partially. Also to find somewhere the ghosts could not follow. He smiled without humor. Turns out ghosts are persistent travelers. But the mountains help, Rebecca asked. They do. Something about the scale and age of these peaks puts human troubles in perspective. Our pain and struggles are momentary against the eternal patience of stone and sky. That sounds lonely. It is, but it is also freeing. He met her eyes across the fire, or it was anyway. The words hung in the air, laden with meaning. Deanna caught her husband's eye and made an excuse about needing to check on something outside, dragging the protesting Peter with her despite his splinted leg. Suddenly, Ryder and Rebecca were alone. Rebecca repeated the word he had used. Ryder set down his harmonica and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I have been alone by choice for 10 years, Rebecca. Convinced myself it was what I wanted, what I needed. Then I found you on that mountain trail and something shifted. I cannot explain it better than that. I feel it too, she admitted. This pull between us, but I do not know what it means or where it can possibly lead. Our lives are so different, they are. But maybe they do not have to stay that way. What are you saying? Ryder stood abruptly, pacing the small cabin like a caged animal. I do not know what I am saying. I'm not good at this, at feelings and words and planning for the future. I stopped thinking about the future a long time ago. Rebecca rose and moved to stand in front of him, stopping his restless movement. Then maybe it is time to start thinking about it again. About what you want beyond simple survival. What I want. He looked down at her, his green eyes intense. I want you. I want to wake up and see your face. I want to fall asleep knowing you are safe and near. I want to share the sunrises and the stars and everything in between. The words poured out now, years of suppressed longing finding voice. But I do not know how to reconcile that with the life I built. I do not know if I can live any other way. Maybe you do not have to choose one life or the other. Maybe there is something in between, some compromise where we both get what we need. You would consider living in the mountains, away from towns and society, if it meant being with you. Yes, Deanna does not need me here permanently. Peter is healing and they will manage. But I would need to matter to you, Ryder. I would need to know this is not just gratitude or loneliness talking. He cupped her face in his large hands, his touch infinitely gentle. You matter, Rebecca. You have mattered from the moment I saw you lying on that trail and felt my heart stop at the thought of losing you before I even knew you. I do not have pretty words or grand declarations, but I know what I feel is real. Then show me, she whispered. Ryder lowered his head slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When his lips finally met hers, the kiss started gentle, almost tentative, as if he feared his strength might break her. But Rebecca pressed closer, her hands fisting in his shirt, and the kiss deepened. Years of loneliness and denial poured into it, becoming something powerful and transformative. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Ryder pressed his forehead against hers. I do not know how to do this, how to be what you need. You do not have to be anything other than yourself. That is all I want. You deserve better than a broken-down soldier living like a hermit. That is not who you are. You are a man who saves lives, who helps strangers, who creates beauty with music and finds peace in nature. You are exactly what I need. The cabin door opened and Deanna poked her head in. Is it safe to come back? Rebecca and Ryder stepped apart, both looking slightly embarrassed. Deanna's knowing smile suggested she understood exactly what had transpired. We were just talking, Rebecca said. I am sure you were. Deanna helped Peter back inside and settled him on the bed. Peter and I were just discussing how much we appreciate all Ryder's hard work. The homestead is in much better shape than when you arrived. I have enjoyed the work, Ryder said truthfully. It feels good to build something instead of just existing. Have you given any thought to what comes next? Peter asked. Will you head back to Cedar Springs? Ryder glanced at Rebecca. I am not sure yet, still working some things out. The next few days brought a new ease between Ryder and Rebecca as they acknowledged the feelings growing between them. They found excuses to work together, their conversations ranging from practical matters to deeper questions about hopes and dreams. Deanna watched with satisfaction, pleased to see her sister finding happiness after the disappointment of her broken engagement. One afternoon, as Ryder repaired the chicken coop while Rebecca fed the birds, she asked him about his mountain home. Where exactly do you live when you are not wandering these trails? I have a cabin about 20 miles northwest of Cedar Springs, high up where few people venture. Built it myself 8 years ago, nothing fancy but solid and warm. Do you ever get snowed in? Most winters. I stock up on supplies in late fall and settle in until spring thaw. It is the best time of year, actually. Everything quiet and clean under the snow. It sounds beautiful. It is, but also isolating. The winters can feel very long when you have no one to share them with. Rebecca heard the loneliness in his words. It does not have to be that way. He set down his hammer and turned to face her fully. Are you saying what I think you are saying? I am saying I want to see this cabin of yours. I want to understand your life, the world you love. And then we can decide together what our future might look like. Rebecca, a mountain winter is no joke. If you came with me, you would be committed for months. No running back to civilization if you changed your mind. I understand that. And I am not some delicate flower who will wilt at the first hardship. I grew up working a farm. I know hard labor and harsh conditions. This would be different, more isolated than anything you have experienced. Then show me. Take me to your cabin. Let me try this life before we make any permanent decisions. Ryder pulled her into his arms, holding her close. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. But I know what I feel for you, and I want to explore where it might lead. That evening, Rebecca discussed her plans with Deanna. Her sister's reaction was mixed, concern warring with understanding. Are you certain about this? You barely know him. I know him better than I knew my former fiancé, even after a year of courting. There is something genuine about Ryder, something solid. I trust him. But living in a remote mountain cabin all winter, Rebecca, that is a huge commitment. I am not committing to anything permanent yet, just spending time in his world, seeing if it is something I can embrace. If it does not work out, I will come back here in the spring. Deanna studied her sister's face, seeing determination and something else, something glowing and hopeful. You love him. I think I might. Is that crazy after such a short time? No crazier than anything else in this world. Peter and I barely knew each other when we married. Deanna squeezed Rebecca's hand. Just promise me you will be careful, and if things do not work out, you will come back. You will always have a home here. Thank you. That means everything to me. The next week was spent in preparation. Ryder made the journey to Cedar Springs to purchase supplies they would need for the winter, while Rebecca worked with Deanna to sew warm clothes and preserve food. Peter, now able to hobble around on crutches, supervised and offered advice. You take good care of my sister-in-law, he told Ryder seriously on his return from Cedar Springs. She is special, that one. I know she is. I will protect her with my life. I am less concerned about physical dangers than emotional ones. Do not break her heart, Ryder. She has been through enough disappointment. I will do my best by her. That is all I can promise. Peter nodded, satisfied. That is all any of us can do. Finally, the day came for their departure. Rebecca embraced Deanna tightly, both women tearful. Write to me when you can, Deanna said. Let me know you are safe and happy. I will. Take care of yourself and Peter. I will visit in the spring. You better. I want to hear all about your great adventure." Ryder shook Peter's hand, the two men having developed mutual respect over the past weeks. "The homestead is in good shape. You should be fine through winter. Thanks to you. We owe you a debt we can never repay. You do not owe me anything. Just take care of your wife and build a good life here." They mounted their horses, Thunder and the gentle mare that Rebecca had ridden from Cedar Springs, and turned toward the mountains. Deanna and Peter stood waving until they disappeared from sight. The journey to Ryder's cabin took 3 days, following trails that grew progressively more remote and challenging. Rebecca saw no other people after the first day, just endless wilderness punctuated by spectacular vistas. Ryder pointed out landmarks and shared stories of his years in these mountains, and Rebecca soaked it all in, trying to understand the world he loved so fiercely. On the 3rd day, as they climbed a steep ridge through towering pines, Ryder suddenly stopped and pointed ahead. "There, that is home." Rebecca looked where he indicated and saw a small cabin nestled in a valley, smoke rising from its chimney. It sat beside a crystal-clear stream, surrounded by aspen groves that blazed gold and orange in their autumn splendor. Snow-capped peaks rose on all sides, creating a cathedral of stone and sky. "It is perfect," she breathed. "You have not seen the inside yet. Do not get too excited." But when they arrived and Ryder showed her through the cabin, Rebecca was pleasantly surprised. The single-room structure was well built and thoughtfully arranged, with a large fireplace, a sturdy bed, a table and chairs, and shelves lined with supplies. Furs covered the floor and walls, providing insulation. A loft above held more storage and sleeping space. "You built this yourself?" she asked, impressed. "Over the course of several months, yes. It is not fancy, but it stays warm in winter and dry in the storms. It is wonderful, cozy and solid like its builder." Ryder looked pleased by her assessment. "I will add some furniture if you want to stay. Another chair, maybe a dresser. I have been alone, so one of everything was sufficient. We will work on it together. I am handy with tools when needed." The first weeks passed in a flurry of preparation for winter. They expanded the wood pile, chinked gaps in the cabin walls, stocked the root cellar with preserved foods, and made the space more comfortable for 2 occupants. Rebecca proved herself capable and uncomplaining, adapting to the rustic conditions with pragmatic good humor. As they worked side by side, their relationship deepened and evolved. The physical attraction remained strong, but they also discovered compatibility in quieter ways. They enjoyed comfortable silences, shared similar views on important matters, and made each other laugh. Ryder found himself marveling at how naturally Rebecca fit into his life, as if the empty space he had not realized existed had been made specifically for her. One evening, as the first significant snow fell outside and they sat before the fire, Ryder pulled Rebecca close and asked the question that had been building in his mind for weeks. "Marry me?" Rebecca turned to look at him, searching his face. "Are you asking because you think you should, or because you truly want to?" "I am asking because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Because you have shown me that solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Because I love you, Rebecca Sutherland, and I want to spend whatever time I have left in this world making you happy." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. "I love you too. Yes, I will marry you." They kissed as snow fell outside, the world contracting to just the two of them and the warmth of the fire. Later, wrapped in each other's arms, they made plans for the future. "We will have to wait until spring for a formal ceremony," Ryder said. "The pass to Cedar Springs will be snowed in within a few weeks. I do not need formal. We can speak vows to each other here before God and the mountains. That will be enough until we can make it official. You are sure? Most women want a real wedding. I am not most women. And this feels more real than any ceremony could be. Just you and me, choosing each other freely. They spoke their vows the next evening, standing beside the stream as the setting sun painted the snow-covered peaks in shades of rose and gold. No witnesses beyond the wilderness itself, no officiant but their own hearts, yet the promises they made felt more binding than any legal document. Winter descended in earnest after that, burying the valley in deep snow and cutting them off from the outside world. Far from feeling trapped, Rebecca found unexpected peace in the isolation. Her days fell into satisfying rhythms: cooking, cleaning, reading by the fire, helping Ryder with tasks around the cabin and surrounding area. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, played cards and made music together, Ryder on his harmonica while Rebecca sang. The physical intimacy between them grew naturally, hesitant at first, but building to something powerful and consuming. Ryder proved to be a tender and attentive lover, his strength tempered by gentleness, his passion balanced with care for her comfort. Rebecca blossomed in his devotion, shedding the last vestiges of hurt from her broken engagement. As winter deepened and the snow piled high, they existed in their own private world. Storms raged outside while they remained warm and safe within their small cabin. They talked about the future, about whether to stay in the mountains or find some compromise between Ryder's beloved wilderness and Rebecca's desire for occasional human contact. We could build a place closer to Cedar Springs, Ryder suggested one evening as they lay in bed. Somewhere remote enough for me but accessible enough that you could visit your sister regularly. I would like that. I love it here, but I admit I miss Deanna, and it would be nice to have neighbors within reasonable distance. We could build something bigger. Room for children if that is something you want. Rebecca turned to face him, her eyes shining. Do you want children? I never thought I did, but with you? Yes, I want to build a family, create something good and lasting. Then that is what we will do. We will build a new home together, raise children, and create the life we both want. They spent the long winter nights planning their future, their dreams growing more vivid with each passing day. Ryder found himself changed by love, the hard edges worn away by Rebecca's gentle presence. She anchored him in ways he had not known he needed, gave him purpose beyond mere survival. When spring finally arrived and the snow began to melt, they made the journey to Cedar Springs to formalize their marriage before a minister. Doc Miller served as witness, along with Martha from the boarding house. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder kissed Rebecca with a joy he had forgotten existed. They spent a week in Cedar Springs, reconnecting with the small community that had brought them together. Then they continued to Deanna and Peter's homestead, where Rebecca's sister welcomed them with tears of happiness. I knew it, Deanna said, hugging them both. I knew you were meant for each other. Peter had healed well over the winter, his legs still stiff but functional. The homestead showed signs of prosperity, evidence that he and Diana were building something sustainable. The sisters spent hours catching up, while Ryder and Peter worked on various projects around the property. Before leaving, Ryder and Peter rode out to scout potential building sites closer to Cedar Springs where Ryder and Rebecca could establish their own homestead. They found a beautiful spot overlooking a valley, with good water and timber and access to hunting grounds. It was remote enough to satisfy Ryder's need for space, but close enough to Cedar Springs that Rebecca could maintain social connections. We will start building in late spring, Ryder told Rebecca as they prepared to return to the mountain cabin. By next winter, we will have our own place. Our home, Rebecca said, the words carrying profound meaning. The years that followed brought challenges and joys in equal measure. They built their homestead slowly but solidly, creating a comfortable house that blended Ryder's need for connection to the wild with Rebecca's desire for comfort and community. Diana and Peter visited regularly, and eventually, the families expanded. Rebecca gave birth to their first child, a son, during a fierce autumn storm. Ryder delivered the baby himself when they could not reach Doc Miller in time, his hands shaking as he held his newborn son for the first time. They named him Daniel, after Ryder's brother who died at Gettysburg. 2 years later, a daughter arrived, red-haired like her mother and fierce from birth. They named her Grace, for the grace that had brought Ryder and Rebecca together on that mountain trail. And 3 years after that, another son who they named Thomas after Rebecca's father. The homestead prospered as the children grew. Ryder proved to be a devoted father, teaching his children to respect the wilderness while enjoying its bounty. Rebecca maintained their home and garden, but also helped Ryder with the hunting and trapping that provided their income. They developed a partnership that honored both their strengths, neither trying to change the other, but instead adapting and compromising to build a shared life. Diana and Peter's family grew as well, and the children, cousins, became as close as siblings. Summer gatherings brought both families together for weeks at a time, filling the valley with laughter and life. Ryder, who had spent so many years alone, found himself surrounded by family and love, and he treasured every chaotic moment. As the years passed and their children grew toward adulthood, Ryder and Rebecca would sometimes sit on their porch in the evening, watching the sun set over the mountains, and marvel at how far they had come from that day on the trail. "You ever regret it?" Ryder asked one such evening, his arm around Rebecca's shoulders. "Giving up city life, living out here in the wilderness?" "Never. Not for a single moment. This is exactly where I belong, with you, with our children, with these mountains." She leaned into him, content. "Do you ever regret giving up your solitude?" "I was not living before you. I was just existing. You taught me the difference." He kissed the top of her head. "Finding you on that trail was the luckiest day of my life. Carrying me 5 miles down that mountain was quite the courtship gesture." Ryder chuckled. "Well, I had to make a good first impression." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars emerged. 3 children, a homestead, a life built from nothing but love and determination. It was more than either had dreamed possible during those uncertain first days, when a mountain man found a woman collapsed on a trail, and chose to help rather than pass by. Years later, when their grandchildren asked about how they met, Rebecca and Ryder would tell the story together, finishing each other's sentences and laughing at shared memories. The tale of the rescue became family legend, passed down through generations. But the real story was not about that single moment of crisis. It was about 2 broken people finding each other and choosing to build something beautiful from their shared scars. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the homestead for a celebration. Diana and Peter were there, now gray-haired but still devoted. Doc Miller, ancient but spry, made the trip from Cedar Springs. The house overflowed with family and friends, with food and music and laughter. As the party wound down and guests departed, Ryder found Rebecca standing at the edge of their property, looking up at the mountains that rose beyond. He joined her, slipping his arm around her still slender waist. "Happy anniversary, Mrs. Owens." "Happy anniversary." 25 years since we spoke vows beside that mountain stream. Best decision I ever made. We have built something good here, have we not? Better than good. We built everything I never knew I needed. Rebecca turned in his arms, her blue-gray eyes still capable of taking his breath away after all these years. "I love you, Ryder. Then, now, always. I love you too, until my last breath and beyond." They kissed as the sun set behind the mountains, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life rich with love and purpose. The mountains stood eternal witness, silent and knowing, keeping their secrets and their stories through all the passing years. Their children would continue the legacy they built, raising families in these same mountains, learning the lessons of resilience and love that Ryder and Rebecca embodied. The homestead would stand for generations, a testament to what two people could create when they chose each other and refused to give up on love. And sometimes, when the wind blew through the valley and the aspens whispered their secrets, people claimed they could hear the faint sound of a harmonica playing, a mountain man's music drifting through the trees, eternal as the peaks themselves. Ryder lived to see his grandchildren grown and his great-grandchildren born, each addition to the family a wonder and a joy. Rebecca remained his constant companion, her strength and spirit undiminished by the passing years. They grew old together in their mountain home, surrounded by the beauty they had always cherished and the family they had built. When Ryder finally passed at the age of 75, it was peaceful in his sleep, with Rebecca holding his hand. She followed him less than a year later, unable to imagine a world without her mountain man in it. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking their homestead, the mountains standing guard over their final resting place. Their children erected a simple stone marker that read, "Ryder and Rebecca Owens. He found her on the mountain. She found him in her heart. Together they built a legacy of love." And below that, carved smaller, "Until the mountains crumble, their love endures." The story of how a mountain man carried a woman 5 miles down to safety, and how that act of kindness bloomed into a lifetime of love, became the foundation story of their family. Every generation heard it, learned from it, and carried forward the values it embodied: kindness to strangers, determination in adversity, and the transformative power of love freely given. The homestead continued to be inhabited by their descendants, expanded and improved but never abandoned. The original cabin where Ryder and Rebecca spent their first winter remained standing, preserved as a reminder of where it all began. And the trail where he found her was marked with a small cairn, stones piled by grateful children and grandchildren who owed their very existence to that chance meeting on a hot summer day in 1878. Their love story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic declarations, though it certainly began with drama. It was, instead, a story of daily choices, of two people continually choosing each other through all the challenges and triumphs that life brought. It was a story of compromise and adaptation, of finding strength in partnership, of building something greater together than either could have created alone. And in the end, it was a story that proved love could flourish anywhere, even in the harsh and unforgiving wilderness, as long as two hearts were willing to nurture it. Ryder and Rebecca's descendants would carry that lesson forward through all the generations to come, a living testament to the power of one man's decision to stop and help a stranger on a mountain trail, and one woman's courage to trust her heart when it led her away from everything familiar and into the unknown. Their story was complete, their circle closed, their legacy secure. The mountains remained, eternal and patient, watching over the valley where their love had taken root and flourished. And if love could leave an imprint on the land itself, then these peaks surely bore the mark of Ryder and Rebecca Owens, two souls who found each other and refused to let go, building a love that would echo through time as long as the mountains stood.